Why am I like this? Why did I read so much? I remember saying about a month ago that I was trying to read less books this year, and yet I read 27 books in January. That's not normal. Why do I not have other hobbies? The ending of this book traumatized me. I read some weird stuff in January. I get it, okay? Russ, I get it. Why do I read this much? Hi, hello, and welcome everybody to a brand new video. I'm excited because today, as I already told you, we're gonna talk about the books I read in January. There are a lot, okay? The books you just saw, that's just a part of it because of course I read books on my Kindle, right? Who am I if I'm not reading books on my Kindle? Not me, apparently. I have my reading journal here because I've been actually tracking my reading in there and I'm kind of proud of myself. So we're just gonna check out the books that I read. We're gonna start in chronological order because honestly, 27 books is a lot and I don't know how to talk about all of them properly. We're just gonna start, okay? Because you're here for the books. So grab something hot to drink or something cold, or just grab something you can drink, okay? Because hydration is important. And let's get into these books. So in the beginning of the year, I had a plan, okay? I had the plan to really work on my physical TBR. And don't get me wrong, I got my physical TBR down to 290, which means 12 books less than in the beginning of the year, which is also not the best. But at least I didn't buy new books. We don't care about this, okay? We care about the first book that I read this year, which is Midnight in Everwood. This is a gothic and very dark retelling of The Nutcracker, and this book only made me realize that The Nutcracker is actually a story that's originally in German, and then it's a ballet. It's a bunch of things, okay? But this is a retelling of The Nutcracker. We have the main character who lives in the real world, and then she is supposed to marry this toy maker, Dr. Dossenheimer, and she then travels into this parallel universe where the Mouse King is just ruling over everybody and it's a reign of terror, and she is determined to get back home because that's all she wants to do. All she wants to do is get back home and hopefully not marry this guy that she doesn't want to marry. And that's like her whole thing. And then of course she meets new people in there and it's so great. It's such a nice found family and I really had a great time reading this, honestly. The ending of this book traumatized me. Sure, it is an ending, but I wouldn't call this a happily ever after. Although there is a happy ending. I'm not entirely sure how to describe this for you, okay? But things happen in the end that you wouldn't expect to be happening in the end. Anyway, I read this book. It was a lot of fun, okay? Let's move to the second book of the month, which was also my favorite book of the month. Reckless by Elsie Silver. This book was incredible, okay? I had so much fun. I love the Chestnut Spring series, okay? That's something that I want to preface right now in the beginning. All of them are incredible, but this one is my favorite one in this series. And I know this is maybe controversial because we have a pregnancy story here. We have a woman who just got out of a very bad relationship and she's getting a divorce, and then she meets this guy, Theo, and he's like a cowboy bull rider guy, and they have like a one-night stand situation and then she's pregnant, okay? But he doesn't find out. And this book is mostly set a few years later when her child is already there and existing. And it's just so good, so much fun. I just love Theo so much. Theo's the guy, by the way. And I just love him. And I love this. I am speechless right now. This was really good. And this is the book that I would just like tell everybody to read this month because it's so good. I also said this on my TikTok, by the way, so if you don't already follow me on there or on my Bookstagram, honestly, everywhere. And then after that, because I was already in the mood for Elsie Silver, I read another book by Elsie Silver. I read Hopeless immediately after that because I was hopelessly in love with the one before. And this one, honestly, it was good. It was okay, but it wasn't perfection. Like, this was a clear 4-star read, but not the perfect 5-star read that I was expecting it to be. The one thing that bothered me in this was that this was a huge age gap and that this whole purity virgin thing was mentioned way too much for my taste. I don't like that trope, okay? Mention it once, but not too much, okay? So he's an army veteran and he comes home to his hometown. Everybody's like fussing around him. He doesn't like it. The only person who doesn't fuss around him is this young bartender. He's known her for years, which kind of feels a little weird, but they're technically a legal age, so it shouldn't feel as weird to me, but it still doesn't. It's not my favorite, okay? I don't like age gap romances that much because they always make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's just not my cup of tea. But if you're really into age gap romances, maybe this one is the age gap romance for you. Who knows? Because I am not here to judge, okay? I'm not here to judge. You know the kind of weird stuff that I read? You will know by the end of this video because I read some weird stuff in January. Anyway, this was also a good book and I would still recommend this book, by the way. It just wasn't my favorite. Moving on to the book that I definitely wouldn't recommend to anybody. The Last Word. I tried to read a thriller this month, okay? I really tried. By the way, if you have any good thriller recommendations, please leave them down below. Because this wasn't it. I tried so hard to find a good thriller. Okay, I find so hard to find a floppy thriller that I would enjoy because I feel like thrillers have to be floppy. But this wasn't good, okay? I didn't have a good time. This is about... Wait a second. Let me tell you what it's about. It's about a woman who writes a horrible review on a book and then she gets kind of stalked, I think. That's the main plot of this book. I honestly DNF'd this after like a few pages. How much was it? Like 30, 50 pages. And I DNF'd this book because it was so boring and I didn't care and it was so unrealistic. The main character is a woman, obviously, but the author is a man. And women, fictional women written by men, it's very hard to get right, okay? Very, very hard. And it just felt so weird to me how this woman was described. The weirdest thing to me in this book, she has a dog, right? She has a golden retriever or a Labrador, one of those two. And it was described that that dog wasn't hungry. And I was like, no matter what this dog will feel, it will always be hungry. But I didn't like this book, so we're moving on from it. After that, I moved on to another romance because I was feeling like I needed more romance in my life, and I found more romance in Wildfire. Now, this is technically the second book in the, like, what are they called? The UCMH something series? I don't know, honestly, but the first book is Icebreaker. And Wildfire was so much better than Icebreaker. It was so cool. We have sort of like a plot line where they meet and she is kind of like a very outgoing person and he is not an outgoing person. So they're both very social, but he's just a little shy and he doesn't like people as much, which I get it, okay? Russ, I get it. And so when Aurora and Russ meet for the first time, they're at a house party at his house and then they hang out a lot, they get along great, and they have like a one-night stand situation again, and then she disappears. He's like, where'd you go? And then they meet again at camp where they're both counselors and they have to keep their relationship a secret because they're obviously not supposed to have a relationship, but they have so much chemistry and the pining in this book is so good. I enjoyed this a lot. This was so much better than Icebreaker. The spice wasn't as obnoxious. It was still there. Like, this is still a very spicy book, but it wasn't like Icebreaker was. Like, it wasn't in the back of a cab with all of your friends. It was like, okay, this is our cabin and the door's closed, right? That's what it was. The Icebreaker made me feel uncomfortable, okay? This didn't. This was good. This was fun. Next, we're moving on to the first digital book that I read on my Kindle. I read this one. This is The Fake Out. This is an ice hockey romance that honestly was just very good. I really enjoyed the first book in that series, and I really enjoyed the second one as well. Okay, so in general, we have like a fake dating hockey romance right here, okay? This is a very fun book. It's a very cute book, and we have a main character, a male main character, who is completely obsessed with her and who has been obsessed with her for a long time. We have a very toxic ex-boyfriend, and then they're fake dating, and he's just like... It was good, okay? I had a very, very good time reading this. And I'm pretty sure that you will also be having a very great time reading this. And the book is on Kindle Unlimited, so technically, it's free. Girl math! I do love Go Math, okay? I use Go Math every single day. The next book I read wasn't really it. This is it. Now, I don't even know if I would pronounce this Hawke or Hawke. I don't know, but I also don't care. This could have been a good romance if it wasn't cheating, okay? I draw the line at cheating. So technically, she is still in a relationship with her toxic boyfriend. She wants to get out of it, but instead of actually ending her relationship with the toxic boyfriend, she's with this other dude at the same time while he's gone on like business trips. And sure, we're not rooting for the weird toxic boyfriend. We're rooting for the guy she's cheating with. But it's still not, it doesn't feel right, okay? It's just weird. We're moving on to the next book, okay? We've talked about this book long enough. Now we're talking about Straight On Till Morning. Now, if you are a fan of Peter Pan, this is for you. Actually, I have Peter Pan on that shelf and I've never read Peter Pan. I'm just pretending that I read Peter Pan, but I didn't. Anyway, this was fun. This was a good time. It was a solid 3 stars, which is a good book, okay? It was fun and cool and very dark and bloody. I didn't expect it to be this gory. The plot, in my opinion, lacked a little bit just everywhere, and in general, I would say this was kind of cute, but I had my issues, okay? I had my issues because this wasn't love, and I was just bothered by it, okay? You cannot tell me that Peter and Wendy love each other. They don't. They're like weirdly obsessed with things, but it's not each other. It's just Stockholm Syndrome in the worst way possible. I'm sorry. I was rooting for the wrong guy and I was sad about it. Next up, I read this one. Unfortunately Yours. Now, this is technically not a Kindle Unlimited romance for me. I think it might be in the US, but it's definitely not here in Germany. This one was also a cute romance. It was like an enemies to lovers rivalry, I hate you kind of thing in the beginning, and sure, that's fine, but I just felt weirded out somewhere in the middle of this, okay? Something stopped me from really being able to love this book. Don't get me wrong, it was still very fun. It was probably just that he was this incredible hero, and I think some of the plot lines that were in this were just dragged on for a little too long. Let's move on. Okay, I don't want to drag this book through the mud. A book that I do want to drag through the mud though. Addicted to You. This is not my book, okay? I know a lot of people love the Addicted series, and I'm not telling you that you're wrong. I'm just telling you that this is not the book for me, and that if you are like me, you will not be enjoying this book. However, if you're a little bit different, which everybody is, you might enjoy this, okay? I didn't enjoy the addiction part. That's just it. This is the whole plot line of the book. We have 2 addicts that kind of have a relationship together. So she's a sex addict and he is an alcohol addict. And they have this fake relationship for their parents. And then at some point she's like, okay, I'm so stressed because this and this is happening. And then they decide, okay, you know what? We're gonna be dating for real now. This entire thing is just such a toxic relationship, and I know that that's probably going to be resolved in the next few books, but I just don't care enough to read those. Anyway, let's move on. Okay, next I went a little crazy, and I read this entire series. So we're gonna start with the second book that I read, because the first book I read a while ago, like in December, which wasn't a while ago, it's just January. Anyway, I read How to Kiss Your Grumpy Boss. It was cute. It was fun. I like this series. It's small town romance, 4 brothers that all work on their farm situation-ish. It's just cute. The third book is How to Kiss Your Enemy. This one, it was also cute, okay? They're both chefs and they're both a little enemies to lovers, quarrel romance. It is a cute one. I like the third one better than I like the second one. It had such a nice plotline of, okay, technically we're like enemies, but we both don't really remember why we're enemies, and like they've known each other from culinary school, and now she comes to work at this farm where he works with his brothers, and it's all just very cute, and the way that he cares for her, it's just adorable, okay? It is just adorable. And then I also read the fourth book, which is How to Kiss a Movie Star. I wanted to read this entire series just because of this book, because I'm really into movie star romances, if you cannot tell. I just like celebrity romances. I think they're cute. This is totally the Wattpad fanfiction girly in me speaking, but I enjoy these, okay? I enjoyed my Harry Styles fanfictions years ago, so I'm gonna definitely enjoy these books. And this one was good. It was fun. He is, of course, a movie star, but he's moving home and she is a biologist, okay? And she's trying to figure stuff out about squirrels. And she's just like trespassing on his property and he's being like, oh my gosh, it's a paparazzi, because she's trying to take pictures of the squirrels and she's like, no, I'm just taking pictures of the squirrels. And so their whole story begins a little bit like that. And then of course they kind of fake date because he needs a cute hometown girl for his dates. And then of course the fame kind of plays into their whole relationship and she's debating whether she can deal with the fame or whether she cannot deal with the fame. That's the plotline of this book. It was fun. It was a good time. It was a classic celebrity romance, if you will, but it was good. The next book I'm going to talk about is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I adore this book. This was a solid 5-star read for me. So let me tell you what this is about. We have a small town, again. Great, I know, okay. Not the typical fairy tale small town, no. We have a rundown small town where nothing is going on. Like, nothing. If we were in Germany, I would say it's completely tote Hose, which means dead pants. I don't know how you would say this in English, but that's exactly what I feel like, okay? Anyway, in this small town, it's just like nobody's there. And everybody is just fed up because the small town was the setting of a very popular romance story, okay? But it's just not as romantic as people think. And in this small town, there is a guy and he lives there, okay? And he is an editor. He's a book editor. And this girl, who is an agent for authors, she goes on vacation in this town with her sister because her sister is obsessed with this romance book. And so they get there and the agent and the editor, they kind of meet and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? And they figure out, okay, we're both here. She has like a bucket list, okay? I don't usually love bucket list stories, but this one was kind of cute because her sister made her a bucket list. And this book, let me tell you, these plot twists were not what I expected. Usually, I can smell a plot twist from like a mile away, but this time I couldn't. I was so surprised when things were happening in this book the way that they happened. I was expecting a lot of things to happen that didn't happen, and then I was not expecting things that actually happened. This was a surprise and a good one because it was one of my favorite books this month and it was so good. Let's move on to the next book, which is this one, Where You Belong, In the Trash. No, I'm kidding, okay? I'm kidding. This is not the book for me, but that doesn't mean it's not the book for somebody else, okay? I personally didn't enjoy this. I found it was a little bit boring. It's a babysitter romance with a huge age gap. Just no. I don't like this book, okay? I don't like these kind of books. They're just not that well done. Honestly, I forgot most of the plot. Like, he has a wine tasting company with his siblings and he also has a kid, and then she's like his best friend's daughter's friend. It's a huge age gap and the writing style just wasn't for me. I didn't have a good time. It was very hard for me to enjoy this book, so I didn't. After this, I was in the mood for one thing and one thing only. My ACOTAR reread. Now, I'm not going to talk about this book, okay? You all know what this book is about. It's A Court of Mist and Fury, alright? If you don't know what this is about, ACOTAR is one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. I don't remember the last time I loved the book so much. Again, it's just every single time I read this book, it's good, okay? It's incredible. I really enjoyed this. The next book is Academically Yours. Now, the dedication in this book, it's a no for me, okay? I've never had a thing for any of my professors. Maybe that's why I don't relate to this. It's just a weird power dynamic, okay? It wasn't my cup of tea. In my opinion, they didn't have real chemistry. It was alright. It wasn't anything extraordinary. And we can move on. Because after that, I went down a rabbit hole. Okay, let me show you the rabbit hole I went down. Haha. These are the Bridgerton books, okay? I'm just gonna put them down again because, as you can see, they're slippery and they're gonna fall out of my hands really fast. First book I read in this Bridgerton series is An Offer from a Gentleman. Now, if you've never read the Bridgerton series, I would not really recommend you to read the first 2 books. What you want to do is you want to go on Netflix, you want to watch the first 2 seasons, and then you want to come back to book 3. because book 3 is where it gets good. Book 3 is my favorite book. Book 3 is Benedict's story, and Benedict's story is incredible. Benedict himself is debatable as a character and as a man, and his choices are debatable. But I forgot her name, okay? I don't care about her name. Sophie! Her name is Sophie. Sophie's cool. This is kind of like a Cinderella story, and I'm here for this, okay? I'm always here for a Cinderella story. Then I continued this series with the next one, which is Romancing Mr. Bridgerton. This is Penelope and Colin's story, which is going to be the 3rd season of the Bridgerton show, which is going to come out in July something, June, May, whatever. Sometime in the summer. This was fine, but it wasn't good. I didn't have a good time. I was expecting so much more because I really enjoy Penelope in the series as a character, and this just felt extremely shallow. She didn't have a personality. I just didn't have a good time. But moving on to the next book, because there are so many Bridgerton siblings that we have so many books. To Sir Philip with Love. This is Eloise's story, and it was weird, to say the least. It was a little weird. I still had a great time, but it was weird. Next up we have When He Was Wicked. This is Francesca's story, where she loses her husband, the love of her life, and she then goes on to marry his cousin. That's it. Thank you for your attention. After that, I read It's His Kiss. This is Hyacinth's story, I think. I don't remember a thing about it, okay? I don't remember it. I think it was fun because Hyacinth is a good character and I enjoy Hyacinth. She's probably one of my favorite Bridgerton girls just because she's not like other girls, but in a good way, okay? She's not like other girls in a good way. I just don't remember her plotline. So it couldn't have been that important. And then my favorite Bridgerton boy, man, whatever, Gregory's story. This is On the Way to the Wedding. Now, the story, the plot itself was very weird, okay? But Gregory as a character, he's cool, he's fun, he's funky, he's fresh, he's respectful. That's what all of the other Bridgerton siblings lacked. It's respect, okay? And Gregory was at least the most respectful out of all of them. Of course, he didn't accept no for an answer, but it was in a very romantic way, and he crashes a wedding. That's this book, okay? Gregory crashes a wedding. And I can see that because it's the first sentence in that book. Then after that, I went on Kindle Unlimited again because I was at my parents' house and I didn't have anything else to read. So I read Camera Shy. This is a contemporary romance and probably the spiciest contemporary romance I ever read, okay? Because it's not just spicy, it's also a little kinky. Because they do it a lot, okay? Let's just say they do it a lot. She's fish sitting for her friend, and her friend's neighbor is this guy who has a photo studio in his basement. So he's a photographer, that's his job. So she's like getting out of a relationship with her boyfriend. I think I remember that correctly. Then she gets there and her neighbor, this photographer neighbor, he's just there. They meet in her whirlpool where she's just like in the whirlpool. And yeah, they hit it off, okay? That's what I'm gonna say. It's kind of cute in a way that he teaches her how to love herself again, which is very important. And I did enjoy this, but for my personal taste, it was just a little too much spicy. I feel like this book would have benefited from toning it down a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion as a person who doesn't really enjoy reading spice that much. And then the next book that I read, that was also very spicy, but I loved this one, okay? It's The Fake Bait. Now, this book introduced me to the Omegaverse, and it transported me right back to my days where I read so many Wattpad werewolf stories that it was kind of unhealthy and it could have been labeled as an obsession. Now, of course, I can generally not be labeled as a person with an obsession because these are just books and you don't see this behind me, okay? But this book was so much fun. I really enjoyed this. They're both doctors and they're fake dating and they're fake pretending to be mates because, hear me out, he is an alpha and therefore he is labeled to be very impulsive, but if he has a mate, then he's supposedly not. Of course, they don't believe in that, but the hospital where he works at believes that. So they pretend to be mates. And she just wants to get her grandma off her back because her grandma wants to set her up with random dudes. And so they become fake mates. And it's just great. The only thing that is better than actual fake dating is fake mating. And like the whole werewolf territorial thing, it was kind of cute. I would probably say it's a paranormal romance, but technically they're wolf shifters. Not really werewolves, but wolf shifters. It's a whole thing, okay? It's a whole thing. But it was great. I had an awesome time. And then the next book I read was this one, The Cock Down the Block. This was not it, okay? This was a book that, again, would have benefited from less spice, or literally no spice, because it wasn't done very well. I didn't enjoy this. This is kind of like a best friends to lovers romance with a little bit of fake dating and a little bit of also not fake dating. And he's been obsessed with her since childhood days. The concept was good. The execution, not my cup of tea. And then the last book that I read Unhinged, and it wasn't fun. You can see the video up there. This book traumatized me, and I will not be talking about this because I made a whole video about it, but let's just say that this wasn't it. Those were all of the books that I read in January. I know it's a lot, okay? You don't have to tell me that it's a lot. I know it's a lot. I know that I could have probably read less, but I feel like I can only be myself and calm if I read. So I read almost every single day, and sometimes I read multiple books a day because honestly, like the Bridgerton books, you can read 2 of those in a day. They are very fast to get through, even though it looks like there's a lot going on. There isn't. There really isn't. I hope that you had a great time. I know that I had a great time, and I will see you for the next video that I make. Bye, everybody! What was your favorite book last month? I want to know, okay? Tell me. Why do I read this much, okay? If I read less, I would have less books to talk about. But then again, you're kind of here for that, right? You're kind of, you want to watch me suffer a little bit. But I think that this was a good month, okay? I think I did well.